Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where frontline sales leaders teach you how to build and scale an outbound sales team. Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your co-host, Collin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by a guest who has done many things in sales, including build his own sales as a service team, and then build a rockin' CRM system. Steli Efti, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Collin. Pleasure to be here.
I'm really excited because today we're going to talk about something that I think every salesperson has done poorly at least at one point in their life and can probably always use to do a little bit of a tune-up. So the conversation you and I were having last week was basically why our competitors' follow-ups aren't working and what we can do as salespeople, SDRs, founders to stand out from the noise.
Yeah, I think that the fortunes are really made in the follow-up, and it's the one piece of advice out of everything that I do. I've written, 10 ebooks on sales and how to do product demos, how to do this, that, and the other. But the follow-up advice that I give is the highest ROI piece of advice I've given. It really has brought in millions and millions and millions in deals, in money raised, in somebody even got married because they followed my follow-up advice, So I think it's an incredibly powerful strategy in life. And I think it's, tactically, it's fairly simple to do well, but emotionally, it's very challenging for people to do well. And that's why most people don't do it. And that's what we want to talk about today and hopefully help people get over that hurdle and then outcompete their competitors and really crush it in the market.
I mean, you said it. I think everybody knows how to do it well. I think the real roadblock is in between, is the execution. Really, is just people don't because a variety of reasons. The first one you're talking about, emotional blockages. Talk to me a little bit about what are some of the things that stop salespeople from, or anybody from, following up.
Yeah, the number one reason why people don't like to follow up is because the silence that they are confronted with, they take as personal rejection, right? There's the two sides of the coin there. One, we all don't like to be rejected, no matter how much of a alpha person, salesperson you think you are. Nobody loves the feeling of being rejected. So anytime I send you an email, I leave you a voicemail. Anytime I reach out and try to connect, and you respond with silence, I take this personally as a strong rejection. You tell me I'm not even worth you responding to me. You're ignoring me. So that feels terrible. That's one side of the coin, the selfish side. But then the other side of the coin is that we all don't like to think of ourselves as annoying, right? As needy. So I'm emailing you, and in my mind, I make up the story where you are so important, you don't even care about me, and I'm so needy and annoying that I keep interrupting your day with my useless emails, right? And so nobody wants to be that person. Eventually, people stop following up because they don't want to feel the rejection, and they don't want to create a brand of themselves or create a reputation of being an annoying person. And I think that framework is what stops people from being persistent and following up and following through. But that also stops the world from incredibly valuable things from being accomplished. Because here's the framework that I use when it comes to the follow-up and that I teach. In my mind, when I follow up with you and you don't respond to me, I'm not making up a story of you laughing at me and thinking I'm worthless and showing everybody in the office the dumb emails I'm sending you. That's not the story that I'll make up in my mind. I have a very simple base hypothesis, and that is that you are busy. That's it. The reason why you're not responding to me is you are busy. You have a life. Your universe doesn't surround itself or centered around me and my emails. And there are many reasons why you shouldn't respond. You might be sick. Something terrible might have happened in your family, tragedy, emergencies. Maybe you're just depressed and going through drama or divorce. Maybe the company's going through a crisis, right? And financing it didn't go through the way that you were planning, and you're all scrambling now to make sure that the next round of financing goes through, and you don't want to respond to my email about purchasing my SaaS tool because you're fighting for the survival of the business. Or maybe it's something more trivial. Maybe the marketing team has started a big campaign and your inbox is flooded with responses. Or maybe I asked you for something, which is probably many times the reason, maybe my email to you or what I'm asking you to do or to decide is something where you're like on the fence. You're like, you're thinking about it and you're like, maybe I should do this, maybe I shouldn't. You're not quite sure. And what do you do when we're not quite sure? We decide to postpone the decision, right? I'll respond later. I'm not sure what I should say here. So that is my basic assumption. You're just busy. It's not good timing. Right now is not the right time. And my job is to champion this relationship until the time is right for you to respond. And to me, yes is good. No is equally good. Maybe is where startups and sales careers go to die. Maybe is where everything valuable goes to die. It's where I don't know what happened. I don't know if you're interested or not. I'm not sure what went on, right? That is the space I always try to avoid. I think too many salespeople and too many startups and companies in general, they let a way too big part of the funnel live for way too long in that maybe zone. I thought they showed some interest. They were curious. We had a good demo, we had a good call, we had a good meeting. And then I don't know what happened, right? Yeah. And then I never heard from them again. So I'm not really sure. And I think that that's a tragedy. And that's something where, so much value is being destroyed. And so the philosophy I teach is when people don't respond, it's because they're busy or because they have a different priority right now. And it's your job to be persistent in a polite way until they have the time to respond. And your goal and your responsibility is to get the conversation from the beginning all the way to a clear outcome, yes or no. But you cannot let a conversation just stop in the middle, without any clear idea of what happened on how to progress it.
I love the sort of champion of timing title that you've given yourself. It's not their responsibility to respond back to me. It's my job to manage this relationship until they're at a place where all of those things that you've listed are sort of cleared and off their plate, and the timing is good for them to respond back to me. I think that's, I remember when I sent my first email, first cold email. It was a long, long time ago, but a more recent example was after I read Predictable Revenue. And the first one I sent was actually to Arent. I was like, I'm going to try this. All of those things that went through my head, I was like, no, he's not going to respond. The guy's super busy. There's all of these mental blockers, and none of them were real. None of them turned out to be, anything close to reality. And if I had let those, if I'd given into, oh no, this is what my brain thinks, might be the issue, I probably wouldn't be sitting here, because that's the email that got me starting a conversation with Arent, and that's what initially led to our partnership.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? How a lot of the obstacles are mental obstacles in life, right? It's what we are fearing would happen if things don't go well, and hence we don't even start, or we progress too slowly, or with too much back and forth, with too much doubt. And then we communicate that doubt, we communicate those fears in the way that we express ourselves. And that then influences the outcome, right? Even when we do get to a point of sending the email, we might write it in a way that's overly apologetic or overly, insecure. So, I do think that these mental blockers are what makes the difference a lot of the time. And the beautiful thing about mental blockers is that it's not gravity. Like, you can change your mindset, and when you change your mindset, you're going to change the way that you behave, and you can do that right now. The industry doesn't have to change. Your company doesn't have to change. Your product doesn't have to change. You just decide to think differently about something, and boom, all of a sudden you can create totally different outcomes.
It's funny how many salespeople I've run into that have that fixed mindset, to quote Carol Dweck. And if anybody hasn't read that book, I believe it's called Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Mindset, yeah.
Fantastic. And she talks about there's basically fixed growth mindsets and fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. Yeah. And fixed are people that believe that I am who I am. I was born this way. If I'm a superstar, it's because I was born a superstar. If I'm not a superstar, it's because I wasn't. She backs it up with tons of research on how pliable and how much our brains and the frameworks that exist inside our minds can actually change with just a little focus, just a little attention.
Yeah, I love that book. So I double click on that recommendation for sure. And I think so. That's foundational and fundamental. If you have the right mindset, you're going to be able to follow up with the right energy and an intent to create the right responses, right? And we might talk about this a little bit, but one of my main rules for follow-up is no matter how you do it, you always, no matter how many times you follow up with somebody, never apologize about it, never refer to all the follow-ups you've done, never make somebody feel guilty, right? Because I've seen this many times. People will write, well, this is the 37th time I'm emailing you. What the hell does that, how is this providing value to me, right? Yeah. Now what you're doing is you're trying to guilt me. If you want to guilt me, you will never hear from me, right? I don't want to have a relationship where I feel guilty.
No.
You know? One thing that I teach is that like the dumbest follow-up sequence that I've ever done is one where I emailed an investor 48 times. 48, right? And this is a billionaire living in the Bay Area, somebody that had built a product that we've all used, just to give you a sense. And I got a warm introduction to him to have a meeting. And he responded to that warm introduction saying, yes, Steli, I want to meet. And then he went silent on me, right? For 48 emails. 48 emails. I had zero creativity, zero funniness, nothing, no strategy behind it. All I did is like every few days, there was another email, one sentence, another beautiful day in paradise. Can we meet this Tuesday or Wednesday? Hey, we just hired a new person. When can we meet this week? Hey, we just launched this new feature. What's a good time this weekend? That's it. For 48 times, zero creativity. You can do much better than that. But in the end, 48 times later, he responded. And his response was literally, thank you for your follow-up and follow-through. We had a big crisis overseas, so I was traveling. I just got back. Can you meet tomorrow at 1 p.m. in my SF office, right?
Nice.
And the beauty is that my emails were short and they didn't, the energy didn't drop. I didn't seem after 48 emails like I'm crying or complaining or apologizing. I made every email sound like it was the first email he got from me. Hey, we wanted to schedule a call. When's a good time? Yeah. Hey, when's a good time this week? Like I just kept it short, sweet, and upbeat. And that makes a big difference because all of you right now, even you, Collin, I put money on the table and I make a bet right now. There's an email in your inbox that you should have responded to that you feel a little guilty about. Right?
I'd be surprised if there was only one.
Right? There you go. I'd be surprised if it's only one. We've all had this, the guilt feeling of, oh shit, I should have responded to this and I haven't yet. The worst thing you can do, and this can be a reason why sometimes people don't respond because they feel so guilty. If you sound like you're a little angry or irritated, it will amplify that feeling of guilt to a degree where I want to hide. I don't want to have anything to do with you because I feel bad about it. Mm-hmm. You want to make people feel comfortable, right? No matter how many times you follow up with them. So you need to feel good, and then you can help others feel good, and never make people feel guilty or strange about, not having responded to you for a number of times.
No, you seem like you've got just a naturally happy attitude. And I imagine I don't know if that's something you've cultivated over time or something you've born with, probably a combination of the two. For somebody that isn't quite there yet, and they're sitting here, they're like, I've got a third follow-up to do after I listen to this podcast. I'm feeling a little bit negative about myself. What are some things that they can do to sort of snap back into that positive mindset?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first of all, I'd love to agree with you, but internally, I have a hard time agreeing that I don't think like I'm a positive person, by any stretch of the imagination, at least not naturally positive, right? I do think I'm an optimist to a certain degree, but I'm also incredibly critical and self-critical. And I've been depressed before and I've been, angry. So, I think all in all, for me, if you're listening to us and you're thinking, I have to do a third follow-up, I feel a little weird, maybe I should give them more time, maybe they don't want to hear from us. My basic call to action for you would be that if you do what you've done so far, if this is your natural inner dialogue, your natural way of thinking, your natural way that you would respond to your current task at hand, if you just follow your instincts, you're going to get the same results that you've gotten so far. And if these results are incredible and you're an insanely happy person and successful person, then ignore us, right? Just keep doing what you're doing. But if you're listening partially because you want to grow and learn and partially because you want better results that you've gotten so far, you're going to have to do something that feels unnatural or uncomfortable. You have to think in a way that feels silly, that doesn't feel like you. Thinking that this person can't wait to hear from you today, that just doesn't feel like the way I would think. Well, congratulations. That's a good thing, right? You want to think new thoughts. You want to do things that feel a little weird. This just means you're growing. And so instead of trying to wait till you feel positive or motivated or excited or convinced instead of waiting till you naturally feel that way, I would encourage you to act as if you feel that way and see if you then start feeling more that way. So even if you feel depressed, send the email, right? Even if you feel angry, send a positive email, send a nice email, and see if you act positive or excited or convinced, if that's going to generate the kind of results and the positive feedback loop that's going to make you more convinced, more excited, more confident, and then hopefully at the end, more happy and successful.
You know, when you said act as if, I was really hoping you were going to go on a boiler room rant right about then. Yeah.
Yeah. Just buy a Ferrari right now, buy the most expensive suit you can get. You need to feel rich to be rich.
Yeah.
Not quite that extreme, but yeah, I glanced over that.
So you mentioned that you're a champion of timing. Now that we've got our mindset, we've gotten around the, okay, I'm feeling negative about this follow-up. I'm feeling good. Let's talk about some of the tactics around, frequency and timing of when and how many.
Yeah, that's a good question. So my general philosophy, and everything really depends on your market and who your customer is. You should know your customer really well, and that will help you based on the feedback and the results that you're getting to calibrate this to something that customized for you. But my general rule of thumb is that when you have a warm relationship, meaning there was a call already, they responded to an email before, you met them in person, you met them somewhere, there was some kind of a interaction or connection. Then my follow-up philosophy in terms of timing is that you want to be very frequent in the beginning and get less frequent over time, right? So if I met with you today and it seems like a really promising deal and it seems like there's a mutual fit, I'll follow up with you today, right? To discuss next steps. And then maybe 2 days later, and then maybe 4 days later, and then a week later, right? So you'll hear from me 4 or 5 times within a fairly short period of time. And then I'll widen it out. So now you hear from me once a week, and then it's once every 2 weeks, once a month, and maybe after a 10-year anniversary of you not responding to me, I'll start doing this quarterly. But
would you send me a card?
I would send you a card. That would be something special. But yeah. I think that, so in the beginning, it's like days. So 1 day later, 2 days later, 4 days later, 5, 7 days later. And then it becomes weeks, once a week for maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And then it would be every 2 weeks, and eventually you get it to once a month. So that's kind of this sequencing of events. When it's a fully cold relationship, even there, I would maybe not as aggressively, but even there, the tendency would be more frequent in the beginning and then less frequent over time, right? Because you want to be very frequent. You want to strike the iron while it's hot. If you don't know me, I've sent you an email, you open it, now you know something of me. So I want to strike now, I want to ping you now a few times over the next week or two. But then I don't have the social capital to keep pinging you as frequently, so I have to widen it out. And same basic principle applies when it's a warm relationship. Only in the warm relationship, I feel like I have the social capital to be a bit more aggressive or have a higher number of follow-ups than I will with a cold relationship.
When do you stop following up with somebody?
It depends. It depends on how important the relationship is, right? So what does this person represent, right? If it's a potential customer that could mean millions and millions and millions of dollars, the answer might be, maybe never. In hiring, for instance, I have this, the blog post that I wrote about how follow-up applies to hiring and recruiting. When I meet somebody that I think is an incredible talent, I will follow up forever. Like 10 years, you'll still hear from me. We had somebody, it took me 5.5 years to get him to work for us, right? And so he had worked for us. He left to start his own business. He left in his career. Every month for 5 years, he would get a call from me. And at the end of every call, it'd be like, whenever you're ready to come back, we're looking. And I think once a year, once every 2 years, I even just send him an offer. Even before talking to him. And I knew that he would not accept it, but it was just to make him know that we really want to work with him. Then, a few years into one of his ventures not working out, what was the first person he called when he was thinking, I want to get back and work for a company? right?
The
Me.
guy who already sent me an offer.
The guy who already sent me an offer. The guy that I know is most committed and most excited about working with me. And this hire, this is a transformational hire. This person has dramatically improved the business overall. So when I meet somebody that I think can be a game changer, I will never stop. My timeline is decades, not years or months. But obviously, this doesn't apply to everything. So if I sell a product where the customer lifetime value is, $19.99 or like $5, I cannot afford, it's not in good conscience for me to follow up with you for 5 years, once a month by a personal call. So I think the unit economics matter. Like, how much is this deal worth? That should basically inform the decision on how long should you follow up. But in general, I don't think that the follow-up has an expiration date in and of itself, where it's like, well, once you've tried for 2 years and it hasn't happened, you should just stop at that point. Nothing happens past 2 years. I don't believe that at all. I think you could be communicating with even a large enterprise company for 8 years, 9 years, and then some big deal happens. Like, I don't think it's ever fully lost. The question is just, how do you prioritize your time? And is it worth it? But yeah, I think very long-term when it comes to follow-up in general.
That's amazing. 5 years and continuing to hit the guy up every month. I want to ask you next about humor, but I feel like I didn't mention that you're from Close.io at the beginning, and we try and keep this podcast product agnostic. But I mean, this has got to be, we've got to be entering shameless plug territory, because obviously you're a very organized guy. Hey, Steli, and we didn't plan this ahead of time. He's not paying me to say this, but how did you manage to follow up over 5 years every month with a phone call?
Well, we have an inside sales CRM called Close.io. We actually built this as we were running an outsourced sales company, services business. We did sales for over 200 different companies. And we built an internal tool at first. We never intended to launch it. And eventually the tool and the software got so strong that we decided to launch it as a little side project. And it grew so fast that it outgrew the main business. And it's what we're running today, Close.io. It's an inside sales CRM that's very much focused on communication and productivity. So we have calling outside the box. You can make calls, receive calls within the CRM. We have a lot of calling productivity features and tools with email sync, two-way email sync. So any email communication, follow-ups, reminders, all that can be done really beautifully and simply within the product. So whenever it comes to communication, it helps to have an engineering team that builds software that allows you to do that job really, really well.
Mm-hmm. And I think, all of these things that we're doing today, we're talking about today, you can do without a CRM. Just specifically, Close will help you do it a little bit easier and make sure you actually don't forget to follow up.
If you force me to agree with you, I will agree with you. Yeah, you said that beautifully. Yeah, you're right. All the things that we said that can be done with a notebook, can be done with a spreadsheet, could be done with a whiteboard. Like, you need complex software. And obviously, as your needs for communication, as your team grows, as your need grows, software eventually becomes an enabling factor that can help you be even more productive. And we love to play a role and be a partner in that. But the things that we are going to talk about today and we've talked so far are agnostic to any specific tool itself.
Perfect. So let's go back to the tactics here. Talk to me a little bit about using humor as part of your follow-up. Because I imagine over time, if you're sending the same, like your 48 email or 48 follow-up to the billionaire, you were just sending the same sort of 1 line, 2 line, couple of different ideas every time. How do you make it fun and engaging for them to not respond to you? Yeah.
So that was an example for a complete lack of creativity, and it's still working, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, my base advice is that even if you don't know what to write, just write short and upbeat, and you're going to be fine. You're going to do really, really well. Now, for the ones that want to have a black belt and be even better than the average, let's talk humor. And this is an interesting topic because I actually learned about that from somebody that was following up with me, right? So I had a guy once send me an email saying, "Hey, Steli, I saw your talk about follow-up. I love the philosophy. I'm the best following upper ever. You're gonna be so amazed, and we should absolutely talk. And I want to tell you about my business and what I do for other businesses like yours, blah, blah, blah." So I read this and I think, all right, let me ignore this email and see if he really follows up, right? So I archived the email. And then a few days later, I get another email from him and he goes, ha ha, I see what you're doing there, Steli. You're ignoring me so I can show you how I'm following up. It's not going to work because I'm going to follow up forever and you will hear from me and blah, 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 and this and that. And I thought, all right, well, let's see if you really do. So I archived that email as well. So the third email that he sends just a GIF of a Cookie Monster, and it's the Cookie Monster just waiting, just tapping on the table, just looking around, just waiting, right? So I laughed, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool and funny. And this is a long time ago. I realized GIFs in emails are now much more common. Like when he did it, this is, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. This is a while ago. It was not as common to use GIFs in emails. So he does the Cookie Monster waiting GIF, and I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. This is interesting. Let's see what else he can do. So I archived that. Then he sends me another email, and he's like, all right, real quick, Steli, I'm concerned that something is going wrong with you. Just hit reply with the number 1, 2, or 3. If it's 1, it means you don't want to hear from me. If it's 2, it means this other thing. And if it's 3, it means that you stumbled and fell and you're in your basement and you need help, and I should call 911 for you and organize a rescue crew, right? So I was like, all right, this is again a template that we've taught now, we've shared, and lots of people have written about it, so lots of people might have seen it. But it was very creative back then. So I saw that and I laughed and I was like, oh, this is really creative and cool. I'm wondering what else. This guy is now sending me really good emails. Let me see what else he can send me. So I ignore that, archive that email, and then sends me another GIF of like when you're in a ghost town, like the cowboy ghost town, and there's what are the tumbleweeds? What are they called?
Yeah, the tumbleweeds just go bouncing through.
Bouncing through. I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. And I ignore that. And then I get another email and he's like, all right, so since all of this hasn't worked with you, Steli, I've recorded a video. And I see like a screenshot of video thing and I click on it and he starts off by saying, hey, Steli, I really want to connect with you. It seems like writing is not the best channel to communicate with you. GIFs are not your thing. So I thought maybe video is going to work. And the entire time, my kind of sales and marketing brain is thinking, how did he do this? Did he mail merge my name into this video? Did he just record the beginning of it, but then the rest of the video is going to be something very generic?
Yeah.
So as he says that, he's like, well, I thought about like recording a little, singing a little song for you. So all of a sudden in the frame appear 2 people on the left and right, one with a guitar, one with a harmonica or something. And they start singing a song. And now I'm full on convinced he has pre-recorded the song and he's just changing the intro of the video, right? Yeah. And he's like, it's the follow-up song and whatever they're singing there. And then in the song is like starting to name Steli and closer and everything. And it's clear this whole thing is just recorded for me. This is not like and I'm like, holy shit, this is really, and it was a good song. His voice is good. I'm like, this is really creative. This person is really charismatic. This is amazing. Archive, right? Because now I'm like, now I want to know what else you got.
What comes next? I'm addicted to this channel.
Yes. This person is giving me all these creative ideas on how to be funny and how to be just interesting and creative. So I think he sent me another 2 very creative and funny emails. And then he almost gave up. Like the last email I got from him was like, all right, you win. I have nothing left. It's never taken me so long to hear back from somebody. This is crazy. And I'm waving the white flag in defeat. Like I don't have any more ideas. And I waited for another week, I think, because I was not sure if this was also just a tactic. And when I didn't hear from him in his usual cadence, I replied and I said, hey, I love all your follow-up. I actually compiled all of them and I just published them in a blog post. Like I took all his emails and I wrote up a blog post, how to be more funny in your follow-up. And I linked to his website and his blog, and I gave him all the credit for it. And he couldn't believe it. And that very day when he responded to me, I was speaking at an event, and he showed up there as well. And I brought him on stage, and I told the story. And he got 4 customers out of the conference event afterwards. So this is a nice little story on creativity and being funny and how that can convert into business and a long-term relationship. And it has benefited both of us. That blog post has, driven hundreds of thousands of uniques over the years and has driven a lot of traffic to us. And so this is a great example. I think today, especially with social media and all that, GIFs are a lot more common, like funny GIFs to express something, a lot more common than they used to be. But I think you can be a little lighthearted when somebody doesn't respond. Acknowledge that with a wink and with some fun, right? The 1, 2, 3 template is a good example of this. That doesn't require you to have like magic or black belt GIF selecting skills. You can just send a quick email that says, hey, you haven't responded to me yet. I assume it's one of 3 scenarios. Number 1, you're not interested. Number 2, it's really bad timing. Number 3, you're on,
something hilarious.
Something funny, you've broken your foot or whatever, you left the country.
There's a hippo in your office and you need me to call animal control.
There you go. You got it. You know all the tricks, obviously, for this. And then just asking people to respond with a number, which A, takes away a lot of friction, and B, it's just so fresh and unique that people will like it. I had lots of people that respond to the 1, 2, 3 email format to write, a whole paragraph on how awesome the email was. Not even like really responding to what you want, but being excited about the email they received.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of ways to infuse humor. Now, obviously, not everybody is as funny as this guy, and not everybody can sing, and we'll record a whole video of them singing. And for some people, I would highly recommend them not to do that, right? Me being one of them. Like, you don't want me to sing for you. Like, that's just not going to be good for any of us. But it shows you that even just a fun little GIF, a wink, a little bit of humor can just lighten up the mood. And when you can make people respond positively and emotionally, like laughter, or even just a smile, right? Somebody just smiling when they're reading your email. It's a powerful thing to accomplish. It's a powerful connection to make. And I want to smile. So if you send me things that make me smile, I want to read more things from you. I want to talk to you. I want to spend time with you. If you send things that make me frown, that make me angry, that make me confused or uncomfortable, I want to run away from that relationship, right? So I think humor can be an incredibly powerful and attractive tool to get people to convert and respond to your emails or any other message that you have.
And I think that's such an important piece. And what you said there is that relationship. And I think a lot of people don't think of it as a relationship because the other person hasn't responded back. But that's what you have. It's a little bit one-sided, but it still is a relationship. And if you're the positive, funny, clever person that's showing that, hey, I'm pleasantly persistent, I'm going to be creative and try and win your attention, try and win your business, that's going to be somebody that I want to respond to. Whereas if you come into this with a negative mindset and say, I'm going to try and make you feel guilty, or I'm going to feel bad about following up, it just creates all these like negative emotions, and you're going to be less likely to get responses.
Absolutely. And I think that, it's crazy. Let's take the framework of mentorship, right? So there's hundreds and hundreds of founders every day, or salespeople for that matter, that reach out to me and ask for advice every single day. And I try to help as many of them as possible. But most of them I will never hear from after the first email interaction, right? So I don't know these people. But there are people, a few of them, but there are some people that just keep following up. I sent them some advice. A month later, they update me on the application of that advice, the results they've gotten, or if it worked or if it didn't work. And there are a bunch of people, 10, 15 people that I've never met in my life. But over the last 2-3 years, I've kept hearing from them. I've kept hearing their updates, their successes, their failures. They kept offering help. And I have a relationship with you. I feel like these people are my friends. I think that I feel like I have an invested interest in their success. And when they're asking me today for help, I'm like, of course, this is Bob, this is John. These are my people. I've known them for 2 years. I've never even met the person, right? So just because you're not meeting face-to-face doesn't mean there's no relationship. Like, I couldn't highlight that fact more. Yeah. And even if they don't respond to you, if they open your email, if they look at it, you have a relationship. You have the start of a relationship. And it's your job to deepen that relationship and to make it a positive one.
Beautiful. Now, so well said. I love the using humor. I'm wondering, are there other tactics not tactics? How do you add value? So humor is one approach. Being persistent and sending a lot is another approach. Can you use these follow-ups to add value? And really, maybe if they're not quite ready to meet, maybe it's because they don't understand. So how do you weave that into your follow-up game?
Yeah. So I'm of two minds on this, right? So there's a lot of teaching out there tells people you should provide value in your follow-up. So one simple way might be to send people articles, right? Really valuable articles. I'm very skeptical on that approach in most cases. And the reason for that is that, and I think you can make that work. Like somebody could send me an article that's really, really incredibly thoughtful and mindful. But most of the time, I'm an expert in my field. I read all the fucking articles. I write a lot of articles. So if somebody pings me and says, hey, Steli, here's an article about SaaS sales, right, that I think you should read, that doesn't really provide that much value in my life, right? I'm not in a lack of things to read. Like that's not a problem I have that you're solving, is adding one more thing for me to read, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an article, for instance, like even trying to defend the strategy, if you wanted to send me an article and provide value, you would send me a summary of what you learned or what was useful about it, right? Now I can quickly scan through your summary and can go, this does really sound interesting, or this is not really for me, but thanks for summarizing what's in there, right? Instead of just saying, here's an article I think you will find useful, and then some obscure long link. I'm not gonna click this, right? I'm not interested in that. Same goes for like industry news or news in general. So this is so funny. Sometimes people, they will ping you and they will wanna tell you something, oh great, as you might have seen, there's great news going on in the SaaS industry. The latest study has shown that, whatever, this tool or that tool or the churn or acquisition channel, this new marketing ways, like I'm in the industry. I don't need you to tell me some generic news about the industry, right? So you need to personalize it. Now, if you send me an email and you tell me, hey, Steli, in an effort to start our relationship, I thought it might be a good idea for me to understand your product better before I explain to you my product. So I went ahead and I signed up for your product and I trialed it out for a week. I have three main things, main takeaways, and three main questions I would love to share with you or anybody else on your team that you think would be useful. Some opportunities that even have nothing to do with my product that I think could be useful for you guys. When can we talk? Now that's useful to me because it's your personal perspective, right? You're not telling me some industry statistic that I can read on my own. You're giving me your personal experience and perspective in a way that I'm like, oh, maybe this person, maybe she found something that we missed. Maybe she has a creative idea that could be useful to us. And I appreciate the effort, the honest effort, right? So the best way for me to stand out is to have more empathy in your emails, which means to me, whenever you can implicitly or explicitly communicate to me that you understand who I am and what my problems are and what I'm going through and what my inbox looks like, I'm going to respond much stronger to you than anybody else. And I'll give you a simple example, a recent example of this. I get, I don't know, maybe 5-6 emails every single day of outsourced developer shops all around the world that are telling me, hey, Steli, you're a tech CEO. I have amazing developers. Why shouldn't we develop things for you cheaper, faster, whatever, right? I get this all the time. All these emails seem the same, and I have like pattern recognition. I don't need to read this. I blink at it, and I know what it is, and I delete it, right? So I got an email just recently, and I open it, and it's the first sentence was, Steli, you probably get tons of these outsourced developer shop emails, and you're probably always deleting them. And I'm thinking, yeah. And the next sentence was, all I'm asking you is to read on for 3 more sentences before you make that decision regarding this email. And I thought, you know what? Fair enough. That's fair enough.
I can say yes to that.
I can say yes to that. And I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate you understanding that you're sending a cold email to somebody in such a competitive, undifferentiated market. This person just, is just, knee-jerk reaction is going to be to delete anything that has to do with outsourced developers. So you understanding the market and the person you're trying to approach and what they want to do, which is delete your email, acknowledging it and giving that person a simple ask, not please read on my 400-page, attached PDF, but just keep on for 3 more sentences. That's a fair enough deal. I can get behind that. I can do that. And I think you earned the right. You earned my time because you showed that level of empathy and understanding, right? So I kept on reading those 3 emails. Now, I hate to end this story with not a happy end. I didn't fall in love and get married with this person and start sending them all our developer jobs, because we don't have outsourcing needs for developers. But I did respond to this message, and I did like some of the work that they had done. And I told them, this is not for us. It's very unlikely we'll ever, in the short term work with an outside developer shop. But I do know a lot of founders, and I'd be happy to connect them if they ever, if he knows a company he wants to work with that I'm connected with, I'm happy to connect them with. So just because of our interaction and some of the work that I saw on their website that seemed really high quality, it was a completely different response to all the ones that I got before. And this is one of my tips for people. When you email somebody, think, what does their inbox look like? What is their thought process? What kind of pattern recognition will they use? And what are the objections that they have, right? So if you constantly hear people say, I don't have the time right now. It's not the right time. Or we don't have the money. Yeah, we'd like to do this, but we just don't have the budget. Instead of being frustrated by these objections, I want you to embrace them, right? Make them part of your message. Your first sentence should be, you probably don't have money. Anybody I talk to that turns out to be a great customer, the first words they always say is, we have no money. So if you think you don't have no money, we might have a big opportunity here on our hands. Or, hey, you're pretty sure right now at this point, this topic is important, but it's not urgent and not a priority. This is usually what we encounter. Here's why I still decided to send you this email today, right? And now I want to hear, now I'm curious, now all right. Now tell me, why was this still today the right time to talk to me when you know and realize that it's not urgent for us to work on this? So if you can have empathy, if you can make me feel like you understand me, and you do that by answering the questions that I have when I have them. Like when at the beginning I'm thinking, I don't want to work with developers, or I don't want to read your email. If you can address that and communicate with me about that, instead of running away from it or trying to go around it, it will create incredible trust. It will make me feel like this person gets me. And I want to deal with people that get me. I want to deal with people that understand who they're dealing with. So that's obviously not as easy as just sending me some random link, but it's a much more powerful thing. And I want to say this, I want to add this because it relates to something we said earlier. One really powerful strategy that I had a friend of mine use a lot of times is that he would send cold emails, but the first 2 emails that he would send, they wouldn't even speak about what his company is doing, what he's trying to accomplish. They literally, the first email would be like, hey, Steli, I've seen you on social media. I like what your company does. I signed up for a trial and played around with a product, and I really love these 3 things, and I wanted to highlight these 2 things that I think you guys can do better. That was the first email. Nothing to do with, he wants to sell me something, but he wouldn't even mention it in the first email, right? So I'd be like, oh my God, this is now a user, right? So I'm going to respond to this user and ask for feedback and thank for the time and all that. And then, a week later, he would send a message of like a quick summary of like, hey, here's something I've written that relates to some of the things that you guys do. Here's a quick summary and some bullet points on what it includes. I just felt like it might be interesting based on what I know about what you guys do, right? So I would look at that. And the third email then would be an email that would say, hey, I spent a few weeks now learning more about your company. We've had some email exchanges. I think that we should talk for 15 minutes. I think what we do could really help, and here's why, and here's what we need to do next to explore this. Now, again, this started as like a relationship that gradually grew into that point, and he saw tremendous success with that. So not every first email always needs to be when can we jump on a call to get married, right? So for you to instantly purchase. It could just be that you start offering value in those ways of giving feedback, sharing things, and over time, eventually finding the right time to say, hey, I also think I have something to provide for you that could be something you want to purchase, something you want to buy and be a customer of.
I love that approach of the sort of delayed ask, where you're not quite asking up front. You're saying, hey, it's obvious based on my job title that I'm here to try and sell you something, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But before we get to that, let's invest a little time in developing this relationship first.
Yeah.
So I've got two last questions for you before we sort of wrap it up here. We've talked a lot about email. You mentioned that you phone. Are these the only channels that you use, or there's some others?
Yeah, not at all. Let's talk about communication channels real quick when it comes to follow-up. So there's probably more, but there's email, there's texting, calling people, and then there is showing up in person, right? Social media and showing up in person. And I think that depending on the channel, you have different opportunities and different pros and cons, right? So email is a communication channel that I think that the pro of email is that you can do a lot, even 48 emails to somebody, because it's not intrusive. It doesn't interrupt people. It's very easy for them to archive, delete, or ignore what you're doing. So email is a beautiful tool when you have no urgency. When you don't need people to respond instantly, it's a very good channel for you to communicate with them because it gives them the freedom to respond and react whenever they want, or to think about it or to do some research around it. When you can, from email on as the foundational side, I would escalate up the communication channels, the more urgent it becomes for you to get them to talk to you right now, right? So text message sometimes is a beautiful channel, especially with kind of customers and prospects that you had a prior relationship with. I wouldn't text message somebody I don't know. Calling people is obviously a lot more interruptive, right? A lot more disruptive, but you can get their attention right now. You know, if they pick up the phone, and you're not part of 400 phone calls that are going on right now, just like it would be in their inbox. But you can call me once, twice, 3 times. 48 times might be a bit too much, right? You can leave me 1 or 2 voicemails. 48 voicemails, I'm not quite sure about that, right? So it's a communication channel that's much more urgent and disruptive, but therefore you cannot do it as much, right? You don't have the social capital to do it as much. If you escalate all the way up to an in-person meeting, you know this. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars in deals have been closed by people just have, you know, we were just in the area and we thought we'd drop by your office, right? That old salesperson tactic has worked for ages and decades, right? Oh, we were just in the area, so we thought we'd drop by. I even have a story of like a founder that they lost the deal, like a deal they worked on for many, many months. The potential buyer called them and said, hey, the final stage, we decided for your competitor. And they bought tickets that were in San Francisco to New York where the customer was. That day, they flew the next morning and they showed up at the office and they're like, oh, we had some meetings in New York. We're really heartbroken that this didn't work out. So we wanted to stop by and say hi. They sat down with the technical team. They discussed a bunch of concerns the technical team had. And an hour and a half later, they had the contract and the deal, right? So this has happened many, many times. Obviously, if you show up at somebody's door or house or office 48 times, you might get in jail, right? Mm-hmm. So you might be in trouble. You can do this only once, right? Just show up at somebody's office. But at times, if the deal is really big and if it's very urgent, that might be a really, really good strategy is to show up in person. You're there. They can't ignore you. They can't be clickety-clacking around on other websites and pretend they're listening. You got their full attention. You're there physically in front of them. But you can't do it many, many times. This is the last escalation, right? Really, is to show up in person. But those are all the channels. You can do obviously a mix of email, social media, and calling. I think that's the most common. But you need to understand that email is the one that you can do with the highest level of frequency because it's such a soft medium to communicate.
I love it. That I'm going to be in the area. When I used to have a territory, and I use that all the time. It's like I'm going to be in the area next week. It's like because I'm planning on driving out to see you. And same thing when Aaron and I were first talking. I was like, oh, I got family in Redondo Beach. I'm actually gonna be there next week. Do you have a few minutes? And he's like, oh yeah, I think I can slot you in here. I'm like, I'm gonna go buy some plane tickets right now.
Yeah, this works.
This works. 100%. Last question. What happens when somebody says no? Do you just let them out easy?
It depends. So it depends on the customer base, the size of the deal, all of that. I do think that, for the love of God, for people that are listening to us, if you just, if you follow my follow-up philosophy, you just follow up indefinitely with the really important deals, we change the world, we made it a better place. But even if you just take the number of follow-ups you're comfortable with today, and we double that, we already made a difference. For the black belts, again, the people that are so, so emotionally kind of focused and convinced and can deal with even when you get rejected to continue being persistent. Yeah. So if somebody says no, if you told me you follow up really strongly, but when people say no, we're not interested, you leave them alone, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to argue with you on that. But for the people that want to know, I do think that no is not the end, not always, right? So it depends. Obviously, when somebody says, please take me off your email list, please stop emailing me, there's a legal obligation for you to take them off the list. You can't just keep emailing them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't mean that you cannot follow them on Twitter, right? It doesn't mean you cannot read their blog or comment on those blog posts. It doesn't mean that you can't ask them to connect on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean any of these things, right? It doesn't mean that if you go to a conference, you know there are companies there, or they're there, that you go and try to make an attempt to make a connection. Doesn't mean that you can't call them necessarily, right? So it doesn't mean that the relationship is forever over, but you have to respect, the wishes of the other side as well. This is a relationship. It can't just be about you. If somebody says, now is a bad time, for instance, that's not the same as saying, no, I absolutely don't want to hear from you anymore. So bad time, we don't have the money right now, we already chose somebody else. All that to me means the timing is wrong right now. I need to follow up again in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months. Somebody just says outright, no, I don't want to hear from you. Please never contact me in any channel. I'm going to have to take a hard, good look in the mirror and go, how much conviction do I have that this person is wrong? What data do I have to prove that they're wrong? And then what risk am I willing to take to prove them wrong and turn this around? And I think it really depends. In some cases, I will not listen carefully to your wishes and I will take the risk. But in most cases, at that extreme no, when somebody just says, please stop ever getting in touch with me, yeah, I'll just respect. There's too much opportunity out there for me to worry about them. So you can, a no many times is just a not yet, so you can check back with them. But when somebody gives you a super brutal, clear, hard no, please leave me alone, just leave them alone in most cases. Unless you think this is the person that can change your business and your life, then don't, right? But find ways to take that risk in a way that's going to have some chance of success.
Yeah, I'd be happy to leave you alone and take you off my list. How about 5 minutes tomorrow to discuss?
Yeah. I mean, there's a trick, this is a question of ethics, where people draw the lines, but I've done this many, many times on the phone when people said, well, can you send me more information? Right? I've used this trick a million times where I say, yes. Oh, I'm happy to send you more information. Yeah. You get the out breath. They're relieved. Okay, this call is gonna end quickly. So I'm asking you for your email now. Hey, what's your email? Even if I have it, I'm gonna have you spell your email address for me, even if you have it. And then I'm gonna continue with the conversation, right? I'm gonna be like, okay, so your email is, Collins at predictable, cool. So how big is the team? And I will keep asking you the questions I would ask you anyways. Mm-hmm. And if you say, hey, wait a second, I said send more info, I'll tell you, and I will. I need to find out some more about you. So I send you relevant information that's actually useful. Yeah. And most people would just continue the conversation with you. And those that push back, I would tell them, listen, I don't want to send you a generic piece of email that pollutes your inbox that you will then not read. So then I have to call you again and we have to repeat this conversation. If I send you something, I want it to be meaningful. I want it to be worth your time. So I need just 2 more questions before I send you something. And a lot of times just by people putting down their guard and relaxing when they think they've won the send me more information argument and then got you to back off, just that alone, 6 out of 10 times will make them continue the conversation for another half hour with me, right? Or 40 minutes. So sometimes no just means, yeah, happy to stop getting in touch with you. Let's jump on a call tomorrow for 10 minutes and explore, make sure, reconfirm that this is a wise decision based on data. So why not? Like sometimes there's this breakup email template that, I know you guys have taught and used and we've used and taught, where you tell people this is the last time you hear from me and because I've tried so many times, I'm taking you off my list. If you ever want to get in touch, let me know. And this works for a number of psychological reasons. People ask me all the time, would you send another email after the breakup email? And I say, yeah, I mean, my personal style is I would, but I would acknowledge it. Like my follow-up email to the breakup email is, all right, you got me. It was a bluff. I lied. I'm too convinced. I'm just too convinced and too passionate that this relationship would work to never get in touch with you again, right? So this was a bluff. You called me, respect, and so I would infuse some humor in that and acknowledge the email. But it's a personal style thing for sure.
For sure. And in this case, you're infusing, positivity, humor. You're acknowledging that what they're probably thinking, like, this guy's followed up again, even after he said he's not, that sort of accusation on it. I love it. That's amazing. Steli, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. This has been super insightful.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun. Yeah, I appreciate it. If anybody, one little call to action for the audience, if anybody is like wanting to know some more of the kind of sales stuff that we teach, I mean, you guys are best in class and we love and refer people all the time to your content and your teachings. But if anybody wants to know more from our side, as I said, I've written a number of books on sales, especially for startups. You can just shoot me an email, steli@close.io. Just bundle motherfucker or bundle please or whatever you want to put in the subject line. I'll send you back a link that gives you all our stuff, all our templates, everything for free and easy to get as a little thank you for listening and paying attention.
Right on. Well, thank you, Steli. I can't attest to all of the content because you guys have so much content out there, but I've definitely read at least one of your books and a couple of your ebooks, and they do have great stuff.
Awesome. That's great to hear.
Right on. Well, thanks again.